Hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching World Today. The United States and China have extended a tariff truce for another 90 days, staving off triple-digit duties on each other's goods as US retailers are getting ready to ramp up their inventories ahead of the critical end-of-year holiday season. President Donald Trump had announced on his social media platform, Truth Social, that he had signed off an executive order suspending the imposition of higher tariffs. Here is a report.
As the world grapples with the tariff rates and India is slapped with additional 25% tariffs for buying Russian oil, China, the world's second largest economy and a major business ally of Russia, has been spared of high tariff rates at least for another 90 days now. Hours before both the world's two biggest economies were set to raise tariffs on each other, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order to pause a hike in tariff rate till November 10th. The truce means that the US tariff on China remains at 30%, while China maintains the 10% tariff on the US. A joint statement was issued on China-US economic and trade meeting in Stockholm. It is based on the discussions that took place during the China-US economic and trade meeting in Stockholm, which was held under the mechanism established by the Geneva Joint Statement. The representative from the Chinese side for this meeting was He Lifeng, Vice Premier of the State Council, and the representatives from the US side was Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, and Jamison Greer, United States Trade Representative. Soon after the announcement, China's stocks climbed, while Hong Kong shares remained steady. China markets have been trending higher in recent weeks as investors priced in positive signals from the US-China trade talks in Geneva, London and Stockholm, which focused on bringing retaliatory tariffs down from triple-digit levels. Many trade analysts hope to see the reshoring of global businesses.
As we're looking at a more volatile trade environment right now, the reshoring, the supply chain diversification will continue onwards, but it may not accelerate as fast as it used to be, primarily because the multinationals that have already diversified their supply chain probably will not need to continue to do so. I think what we may see, which is actually against the trend, is that we might start seeing some more reshoring back to China.
Some also say the timing of the extension till early November is very crucial. There will be a surge in seasonal imports of electronics, apparel and toys at lower tariff rates for the Christmas season. However, this also prevents the US tariffs on Chinese goods from shooting up to 145%, while Chinese tariffs on US goods were set to hit 125%. The tariff truce also gives time for negotiations and enable a framework leading to a Trump-Xi meet later in 2025. The order also serves to stabilize the global market, which earlier in the year had faced major upheavals due to US-China trade war. Though Trump has tried to stable US trade ties with China, it has not levied any additional tariffs on China for purchasing Russian oil. Meanwhile, US chip makers Nvidia and AMD have reportedly agreed to hand over 15% of their revenue from advanced AI chip sales to China to the US government. This unprecedented agreement clears the way for export licenses to resume following earlier restrictions. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
So why US President Donald Trump is being extra considerate for China? Is there a tactical stance President Trump is taking, or a larger geopolitics is involved in it, or is US changed its strategic position vis-a-vis its strategic rival, China. To discuss this issue further, I am being joined by Michael Sobolik, Senior Fellow with the Hudson Institute from Washington, D.C. Welcome to World Today. And
Thank
Michael,
you so much.
My first question to you would be, what's the real reason behind President Donald Trump's decision to extend the 90-day tariff truce with China? What are the U.S. compulsions driving this move to offer these concessions to China? And which are the biggest purchasers, or like who's getting benefited out of this deal, of this tariff truce?
It comes down to the reality that Beijing found a way to hurt Washington acutely earlier this year. In response to President Trump's tariffs on China, China then restricted the export of rare earth minerals to America, which was a huge problem because the United States relies heavily on China for those critical elements that you need in consumer appliances, in your kitchens, in your cars, and in advanced defense platforms for the Department of Defense. So China had a way to hurt America significantly and retaliate. And because of the stringent nature of that retaliation, President Trump has been trying to find a way to get to a deal without risking further retaliation from China.
But Michael, do you think it's a tactical position because these 90-day term ends in around early part of November, and this is a crucial time for the U.S. importers to fill up their inventories ahead of the holiday season? Or you think that President Donald Trump has changed its stand because China is a big trading partner for the United States?
I don't think President Trump has changed his outlook, nor has he changed his objective. His objective has been, and I think continues to be, to open foreign markets up to American companies. I do think, though, that his tactics are shifting because there was clearly a significant level of blowback from China in response to his tariffs. And you also saw him change his approach after the Liberation Day tariffs that he announced in early April, when the U.S. bond markets reacted quite negatively. So you see him shifting how he's going about approaching his policies. I do think, though, that his goal has always been to get the government in China and governments around the world to open their markets for U.S. companies. I think that remains unchanged.
But Mr. Sobolik, what intriguing for people in India is that President Donald Trump being considerate for China, which is the biggest purchaser of Russian oil. But on the other side, he's being hard on India. And you know that President Donald Trump has slapped an extra 25% tariff over the Russian oil purchase on India, while he's actively engaging with China in trade talks. Is this more about the geopolitics or trade?
I think it's about both, undoubtedly. I think the two are intersecting more and more in the 21st century. And I believe that with the positive relationship that Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi had in Trump's first term, I'm confident they're going to work something out. But I do think that it is a strategic mistake for America to treat India aggressively right now. Of all of the partners and the friendships that Washington has in the world, India is one of the most important countries for America. We need each other, and we have overlapping interests in a whole host of ways. So I do think it's unfortunate the way that the relationship has turned south recently. And I hope that for America's sake, and of course for India's sake too, that we can find a resolution quickly.
Obviously, everyone is hoping that we could find a resolution in near future. But what happened in last 6 months clearly shows that the relationship is not going in a right direction. So what message President Donald Trump is trying to send to India with his tariff, and how might it affect the US-India relation? Because you study Quad, you study the Indo-Pacific, the China dynamic here. What could be the outcome? And especially, I want your views on a possible US brokered ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine. What will be its impact on President Donald Trump's tariff policy vis-a-vis India?
Of course. With geopolitics, I think President Trump understands it, he appreciates it, but geopolitics has never been his primary vantage point to understand how the world works. President Trump has always thought in context of trade and tariffs and markets and economics. That is how he has always seen the world. And that can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. And I think we're seeing, if you don't appreciate the geopolitical interests that Washington and New Delhi have in common, and all you see is an economic perspective with foreign markets, a lot of these nuances with security and with diplomacy that matter so deeply can get overlooked or can be misunderstood. So to your question about does trade matter more? Does geopolitics matter more? They both do, but I think President Trump has a proclivity to see trade first before he sees other issues. And again, that can be a good thing for American businesses, but it can be a bad thing for American national security. So like if he's able to broker a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, that could rebound to India's benefit if there's no longer a live conflict, because as you say, the president is very concerned about Russian oil exports. But at the same time, I hope that he understands and appreciates the unique value of our relationship
You're
with
absolutely
India.
right,
It's one of
Mr.
our most
Michael
important
Sobolik, that
countries.
President Donald Trump's tactical position on trade and bringing benefit for the U.S. business, and trading community and the business environment of United States, but this is also impacting the national security interests of the United States. Thank you very much for joining us on World Today. Thank you for your perspective.
Thank you so much.
And moving on, US President Donald Trump has justified 50% tariff on India. He said that it has dealt a big blow to Russian economy. Let's listen in what he has to say, because US President Donald Trump is imposing a 50% tariff on India, and it has impacted the Russian economy. Speaking at a press conference in White House, President Donald Trump has said that the Moscow's economy has been affected due to growing global pressure and imposition of high tariffs on countries doing business with with Russia, including India. Though President Donald Trump has extended the deadline to impose higher tariffs on China till early November. The US slapped an additional tariff of 25% on India for purchasing Russian oil. The US has slapped a total of 50% tariff on India, making India, along with Brazil, to have the highest US tariff rate in the world. President Donald Trump also claimed his tariff have helped the US not only generate revenue, but also solving 5 wars, including the military conflict between India and Pakistan.
Tremendous potential in Russia to do well. They're not doing well. Their economy is not doing well right now because it's been very well disturbed by this. It doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. And then they say, gee, he wasn't so tough. Nobody else would have done that. And I haven't stopped there. I mean, look, I was all set to do things far bigger than that, but I got a call that they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. You know, it takes 2 to tango, right? The tariffs have helped. It's given us not only the money, it's billions, trillions of dollars of money, but it gives us great power over enemies. We solved 5 wars with Pakistan and India. We just solved one, Azerbaijan, and as you know, and Armenia.
And not only President Donald Trump's decisions and his announcement regarding tariff, but also his decision to deploy National Guard in Washington, D.C. is causing concern and protests these days. US President Donald Trump's announcement to deploy the National Guard to Washington, D.C. and taking control of the city's police force and his pledge to crack down on the crime and homelessness in the city. While city's mayor Muriel Bowser has rejected President Donald Trump's claim about rising crime rates in the US capital.
In a major move, US President Donald Trump has announced that he's placing Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control and deploying National Guard troops to the capital. Citing a public safety emergency, Trump said the move follows the assault of a former government worker in the city.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Trump later confirmed that nearly 800 National Guard troops would be deployed to the city. The announcement also coincided with a courtroom hearing as the Trump administration's legal team appeared in court over the legality of the National Guard's earlier deployment to California in June during immigration protests in Los Angeles. The National Guard is a 431,000-member reserve U.S. military force that serves both federal and state governments. It responds to domestic emergencies like natural disasters and civil unrest and supports military operations abroad.
Protect home rule. Protect home rule.
In response to Trump's announcement, hundreds of protesters hit the streets in Washington, D.C., chanting slogans and holding signboards. They sang and applauded as speakers condemned President Trump's decision. Protesters vowed to stand against authoritarianism in Washington, D.C., warning that the move threatened the autonomy of communities nationwide.
I want to be clear, this is not about crime. This is about what Trump is trying to do to D.C. in order to take over D.C. and silence us. This is the story of a ruler who is trying to oppress a people and who's causing real harm to real communities in the process.
They are extolling a fascist America and a fascist takeover of D.C. It is time to unite, not to fight each other the way they want us to do. And it is time to get people into the streets. To get people into the streets.
While President Trump cited a surge in crime as justification for taking control of the predominantly, data from the local government paints a different picture. According to the Metropolitan Police Department, crime in Washington, D.C. has actually dropped significantly in recent years. Trump's move sparked backlash not only from residents but also from local leaders. Democratic Mayor of Washington, Mayor Muriel Bowser, also criticized the action.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID, but we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts.
DC Attorney General Brian Schwalb also condemned the move, calling Trump's action unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful in a post on social media. He indicated that his office plans to challenge the administration's decision through legal means. Trump's decision to federalize Washington, D.C.'s police force was based on the Home Rule Act of 1973. This federal control can last up to 30 days and can only be extended if Congress approves and passes legislation. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
The United States officially designated the Balochistan Liberation Army or BLA and its alias the Majid Brigade as a foreign terrorist organization. The Majid Brigade was also added as an alias to the BLA's previous designation of Specially Designated Global Terrorist Organization classification. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed the move in a press statement, and I quote, "Since 2019, BLA has claimed responsibility for additional attacks, including by the Majid Brigade. While BLA was already on a US terror list, this new and expanded designation is widely seen as a significant diplomatic outcome for Pakistan, while introducing new complexities for India. India always rejected the baseless Pakistani allegations for BLA activities and maintained that Pakistan should look inwards instead of pointing fingers and shifting the blame for its own internal problems and failures onto others. Incidentally, the decision to designate the BLA as foreign terrorist organization comes at a time when the United States is cozying up to Pakistan and also announced its intention to invest in mining and oil exploration in Balochistan. And let's talk about the tech world. The public spat between the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and ex-AI founder Elon Musk is heating up again, this time over Apple's App Store. Here is a report.
The AI war just escalated with Tesla CEO and ex-AI founder Elon Musk accusing Apple of manipulating Apple Store rankings to keep OpenAI permanently at the top. Taking to X, Musk claimed, and I quote, "Apple is behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach number 1 in the Apple Store, which is an unequivocal antitrust violation," unquote. But the battle did not stop there. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman fired back, accusing Musk of hypocrisy, alleging that he manipulates the platform X to favor his own companies. Altman wrote, and I quote, "This is a remarkable claim given what I have heard alleged that Elon does to manipulate X to benefit himself and his own companies and harm his competitors and people he doesn't like," unquote. He even shared an article detailing how Musk allegedly tweaked X algorithm to prioritize his own posts in users' feeds. This public feud started after Musk announced his plans to take legal action against Apple, accusing the tech giant of giving unfair advantage to OpenAI, igniting a full-blown AI turf war. The war of words between the two tech giant CEOs has sparked a wave of reactions online, with users quickly taking sides. But this clash is not new. Elon Musk and Sam Altman have publicly taken jabs at each other before. Musk, a co-founder of OpenAI who later distanced himself from the company, has been at odds with it ever since launching his own AI venture, xAI. At the core of their rivalry lies a battle over a market worth trillions. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.